Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Jesus reminds us to watch for the signs of his return. Today we will explore further what we are seeing in our times that line up with what signs he said would indicate the potential of the end and his return. We will also discuss the practical meaning of this as we watch and as a remnant prepare as he so leads. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. Here we are. Fridays, good times, end times Fridays.
Good morning. Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. Lots of interesting stuff going on as we, consider the end. And again, just to set the stage, as we continue to just pursue the Word. What does the Word say? What doesn't it say about the end? We can trust it and then help God and ask God to help us to understand, is there signs and things that you want us to understand? We know one thing to be true. It says this is true. Well, then how might that look, for what we might experience, since we know it's going to be true? And we'll see something even in here today, which will imply that the rapture, we're not going to get into the rapture, but we're going to get to there eventually here, but that the rapture may not be pre-trib because of what it says.
Right.
Well, that's all we can do is say, well, that's what it says. And by definition, it's true. So therefore, it means something, and that's what we're trying to approach it. And as we approach, this potential of, are we in the end? And I can say, interesting enough, that a lot of people, and this is independent, have been receiving dreams and thoughts and ideas, and hey, is this happening? And am I supposed to respond to this? And when that happens, and again, you use the word birth pangs beautifully, is that, well, it's getting more intense and more frequent. That means, eventually it's going to come.
Something to pay attention to.
Attention to. And again, we can't say for sure when, and God's birth pangs, they might be decades long, so we can't say, well, for sure it looks like it's going to happen, the next year or two, but it's just a matter of, understanding things. We talked last time about watching something specific, which is the Supreme Court weighing in on the vaccine mandate.
Right.
And that is if they supported it as, yes, it's a constitutional thing and we support it and it can become law, I believe that means there's going to be a acceleration of the birth pangs, because going toward one world government has kind of crossed the threshold of, when you think of one world government, we know a couple things about it. It's central. It's operating the entire world governance, and it's not a democracy.
Right.
Because we don't vote on the establishment of it. We don't vote on who's going to be there. It's established, said this is it. And interesting enough, again, because of the way it happens, and it's used in the Bible, it's used the word tribulation. Well, we look at tribulation as trouble. Like,
right.
And that's why people, Christians particularly, are going to be confused by this, because if we interpret it as trouble, well, the tribulation that actually comes about with one world government is providing a solution to a problem that appears to be blessing. Why? Well, because there's a collapse. There's an economic collapse. Everybody suffers as a result of it. And the governments of the world aren't able to have any solution to that. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. We saw a little bit of that slightly in 2008.
Right.
Interesting enough, it was it was started in America,
Mm-hmm.
and the investment. Well, it was a worldwide situation, but what had happened is that prior to 2008, and this would be 4, 5, 6, 7, the bankers, the lenders, mortgage people, basically took away the requirement of having an 80% loan to value, what they call LTV, and they'll lend you 100%. They kind of relax the criteria.
Right. And in
So
fact, the loan, whatever they would approve you for, was nowhere near what you should be spending
no,
on
no,
anything.
no, it was way higher, and they
Mhm.
didn't follow underwriting rules.
Right. Right.
And interesting enough, the government, who was supposed to be the watchdog of that, became partners with that.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody overborrowed.
Mm-hmm.
They got loans. They had houses that were overpriced, and what was and the way it worked is, by the way, and this happens even today. If you go down to your local mortgage company
Mm-hmm.
and or bank or whatever it does, and they supposedly give you a loan.
Right.
Okay, they issue the money, they give you the loan. Within a month to 6 months, they sell that loan to the next player in the
Mm-hmm.
system that buys bulk loans. So that bank, let's say they do 20 loans in the course of 2
Mm-hmm.
months. Well, there's somebody behind them that'll buy all 20 of those loans.
Right.
And then they package up their loans and sell them to a third party. And by the way, by the time it gets to the third party, you're talking about billions of dollars. Local banks, giving you a $200,000 mortgage,
Mm-hmm.
package those up, goes into the millions, hundreds of millions, and then the hundreds of millions becomes billions, owned
Mm-hmm.
by the people at the third level. Well, as they typically used to do it prior to 2008, the ones that are second and third would evaluate those loans.
Okay.
And they would look at incomes and cost of housing and ratio of debt to equity and ratio of debt to value, and they would say, yeah, we're not taking all those loans. We're only going to take these because the rest of them aren't any good. Well, because of that, the first line, which would be the banks, would say, well, I'm not going to be able to sell this loan because I know it's no good up front.
Right.
So I'm not taking the loan. So it was kind of a self-defining process that kept everything kind of straight. Well, when the second level and the third level said, what, we don't care anymore.
We're not going to bother. Yeah.
And it wasn't going to bother. And the idea was, and here's why. They are making millions, billions of dollars in fees. And it's like, well, what could go wrong? So what did we lose some? We're making so much money that they skipped the evaluation process.
Right.
So now they got these loans, and then the third level gets theirs loans. And in 2008, what they call the investment bankers that were part of the process, one of them held a tremendous number of these loans. Well, people started defaulting on their loans, so they couldn't pay it.
Right.
Interest rates went up, their jobs were suffering, they couldn't pay it. So there started to be foreclosures and bankruptcies. And at the end, they finally realized that, there's a big number of loans that are bad, and we own them. And so literally they were going to go under. And if they went under, which they headed toward and were on the verge of, it, interesting enough, would have collapsed the entire economic system. So, and it was all started here in America. And so George Bush and then Barack Obama continued it, is they worked through the central banks to rescue what they call a bailout, and they bailed them out. They bailed them out with what? Tax money.
Right.
And this is funny. Well, we didn't really have the money, so we borrowed the money to pay the money, and it was, but it kept it from collapsing. So there was a microcosm of, and I don't know if you remember, the unemployment rate soared, and people were in trouble financially, and there was great fear, and the stock market crashed, and all of these things happened. Now, because they rescued it, it didn't last very long. You know, it was probably 2011, 12 before it started to really get back to normal.
Right.
But we saw what happened. So
right, and a lot of people lost a lot during that time.
Yeah, lost a lot of money. And because remember, what appears to be equity may not be.
Right.
Could be what they call paper equity, and it's wallpaper, what we call wallpaper. So when we look at the tribulation, the word is trouble, but the trouble is because of the whole thing, not because of what happens when it begins. Because when it begins, the trouble will have already started, and that is the collapse. It'll be another 2008, rarely, but probably 10 times more serious, and no solution. They don't have the money, which, by the way, right now, today, it would be difficult to provide the stimulus necessary by anybody, Europe, China, US. There's no money. There's not that much money to do that and rescue it. So it's a different stress level. So when it happens, there'll be an economic collapse, and then one world government is going to step up and say, okay, we are going to solve the problem. And we're going to release your debt. We're going to pay you money. We're going to get you jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And at the moment, the people that are suffering are going to say, well, this is a solution,
right?
Because the world willingly accepts it. They
will welcome it because it feels like an answer. Yeah.
So we will, Americans, for example, we're a democracy. We vote who's going to be in, who's going to be out, parties, all that stuff. That's all going to go away. Literally go away, and there'll be no party, there'll be no America, there'll be no United States. The Constitution will be gone. Everything will be replaced with the one world government that the American populace, along with the European populace, along with the Asian populace, Canada, etc. Yep, fantastic. Well, the word tribulation at the time won't sound like, well, this isn't the tribulation. This is a great thing. And God says, no, when the one world government takes over, that's the beginning of the tribulation.
Right.
And you gotta understand that. And so there are things that happen as a result of it. So that, as we talked about the Supreme Court with the vaccine, it's in the courts right now. They've already stated, I just read it this morning, it's on its way to the Supreme Court. Now, on its way, meaning it could probably take months, but it'll get there and they'll rule. And if they rule, it's constitutional. Yes, you can do this. Yes, you can mandate somebody to either take it or not be employed, or take it or not attend this thing, or not get on an airplane or whatever. I believe it's a acceleration moment. If it's the Supreme Court says, no, you can't do that. You can suggest and you can promote and basically give people a choice, either be tested or have the vaccine. I think that's a sign we're going to have more time. And so now we've seen something interesting, and it's actually in sequence, and we'll see what's going to happen. And there's lots going on in the world as well, with the whole economic system. There's, by the way, a week ago, they've had another huge increase in unemployment applications.
Yeah.
Supply chain is struggling, shortages. Costco, for example, just says you can't buy more than one box of toilet paper and
Right.
paper towels.
And paper towels are being limited again. Yeah.
And a variety of things because we're having a hard time getting them, and we want to streamline it. So that's like, that's interesting.
Right.
That's showing some things. So we can see it. And we started last time talking about Daniel's description in 7, 8, and chapter 8 of the beast. He said it's a fourth beast. Remember, the other three have already come and gone.
And he said this one is significantly different from the others.
It's extremely different. It devours and breaks in pieces the system, and that will be the world system. It's going to devour it, literally break it to the level of it doesn't exist. And he describes it. Breaks it in pieces so it doesn't exist, and introduces a brand new system that people begin to understand it. Well, the beast, we have to remember, is not the Antichrist. A lot of people kind of somehow they put those two easy together. Well, the Antichrist is the beast, and the beast is the Antichrist. No, the beast is a system of one world government, and it says it's headed by 10 horns or 10 units. So again, there'll be hierarchy. So there'll be this new world government will be organized in 10 different units. Now, a lot of people have already predicted that that's geographic because of what I see and have understood and began to understood more is I believe it could be more of a corporate structure.
Right. Well, and especially with it being centered around the economy.
Yeah, around the economy.
And coming under basically a one world economy.
And these corporations. And by the way, there's several in America, Google, Amazon, Facebook. There's obviously automobile manufacturers in China. There's Alibaba. There's a variety of international companies. There's companies in Europe that are international. So I believe it'll be a combination, but there'll be 10 kind of superstructure corporations, structures, units of some kind, and they'll be headed, and they'll become, let's say, the cabinet. That and because of the way they organize it, and it's identified in Scripture. It doesn't say, like America, for example, we have a president who's the kind of the chief. They call him the chief, commander in chief, and he has a cabinet, and the cabinet reports to the president and processes that. Well, when it talks about the tribulation, it's 10, and that's it. It doesn't start out with a leader. It's not a single person. It's not a single unit. There won't be a like a president or a prime minister or a supreme leader. Right. It's going to be the 10.
So there's some level of more equal footing, at least at that point.
At that point,
as well, equal footing.
It starts out that and I think that'll be kind of the attractiveness of it to people, particularly Americans, is that, well, it's not a dictatorship because it's not a single person.
Right.
Interesting enough, it's a dictatorship because it's one world government and you don't have any choice. You're not voting a man out. You're not deciding I'm going to join it or not join it, although there will be the mark of the beast and believers will have a chance to do that. But the world willingly accepts, okay, I give up my sovereignty. I give up my U.S. dollar currency. You're going to convert it to a new digital currency. And by the way, another sign of that, interesting enough, is, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but so far everywhere I've gone in the last 2 months, nobody that I've ever gone to, I'm talking restaurant, sports, stores, even kiosk, you know,
Mm-hmm.
selling at a you know, a little cart, you can't pay cash.
Yeah. When we were at the Patriots game the other day, there were zero cash accepted on the entire place.
Right.
You know, regardless of what transaction you were trying to do, there was no option for cash.
There's no cash. So that leads itself to, in a sense, and again, you know, I look at things fairly simply, and I kind of say, right now, my experience is I'm already in an electronic currency.
Mm-hmm.
I can't give them any money.
Right.
I can only give them my card. I could do a debit card or a credit card, but it's electronic.
Right.
And it's just numbers. Literally shows up in, well, your account has X dollars,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not really dollars. It's just a calculation
Right.
that's sitting there, and I can use that calculation to trade and buy things. So we're already kind of electronic, and when it goes worldwide, it's going to go from well, you can have dollars and yen and won and euros and Canadian dollars, etc. All of that goes away, and you
Mm-hmm.
just have one digital currency.
One equal
Yeah,
currency. Right.
yeah. And I have a friend who is being led by God, and he's actually has a place in Iceland.
Mm-hmm.
And God told him, because his viewpoint is, well, what do you want me to be doing in Iceland? You know, and he's already been called. He said, well, I'm going to involve you with business. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
great. He's happens to be in a equity raising business and can provide cash. Am I supposed to do that? He said, no. Okay, what am I supposed to do? He says, God says, nothing. I'll bring it to you.
Interesting.
I just want you to be available, knowing it's business. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
have ministry through this, but I'm going to tell you business. Okay, so we were together recently, and I said, how's it going? He said, well, he said, in my complex where I own this place, this guy comes and says, I'm unhappy with the complex because they're not taking care of the trash and a variety of things. So I'd like to really go after him and take care of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy says, you know, no, I don't want to be part of that, because he said, I want to recruit you. You're an American, so you Americans are always really want to go after stuff. So I'd like you to join me. Nah, I don't want to do that. But you know, tell me about you, and you know, what do you
Mm-hmm.
do, and all this. So he finds out the guy used to be the chairman of the Icelandic Federal Reserve.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, oh, okay. Well, what are you doing now? What's going on now? And he says, well, I'm no longer the chairman. I'm no longer a member, but I'm facilitating the development of a central bank electronic currency.
Oh, really?
And he said, all of the, I can tell you that all of the electronic currencies that are basically developed privately right now, most of them,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to raise money, like Bitcoin, you know, went from, which I wish I would have jumped on that one. You know, went from $1 to $50,000, you know, which is
Mm-hmm.
pretty amazing. So if I'd have bought, you know, 100 of those, I'd have $1 million, you know. So I wish I would have done that. So he said all of those private electronic currencies are going to wind up going away
Mm-hmm.
because the central banks are getting ready to introduce their own electronic currencies.
Right. Well, and we do see things already, you know, a lot of things in the news talking about countries putting limits on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency
Yes.
and, you know, banning the mining. Didn't China just ban mining of any cryptocurrency or
Yep.
something
Yep.
like that? You know, so
Yep.
we're seeing some of that being drawn back. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. And so it was like, oh, that's really interesting. So the movement to put things structurally in place
Mm-hmm.
is occurring, and the beast is one world government, central currency, a single currency, electronic.
Mm-hmm.
They solve the world's problem. They set up their own government, and everybody surrenders their sovereignty, which we talked about last time, and that there's 10 units that are running, the show. Okay, if you'll pick it up, we read this last time, but let's read it again. Go to Daniel 7, read verses 15 to 28, and then 8, 23 to 27, just to remind people where we're at, because there's a lot of good detail in here.
Okay. As for me, Daniel, my spirit within me was anxious, and the visions of my head alarmed me. I approached one of those who stood there and asked him the truth concerning all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of the things. These 4 great beasts are 4 kings who shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, forever, and ever. And then I desired to know the truth about the 4th beast, which was different from all the rest, exceedingly terrifying, with its teeth of iron and claws of bronze, and which devoured and broke in pieces and stamped what was left with its feet, and about the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn that came up, and before which 3 of them fell, the horn that had eyes and a mouth and spoke great things, and that seemed greater than its companions. As I looked, this horn made war with the saints and prevailed over them until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came when the saints possessed the kingdom. Thus he said, as for the 4th beast, there shall be a 4th kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all the kingdoms, and it shall devour the whole earth and trample it down and break it to pieces. As for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom 10 kings shall arise, and another shall arise after them. He shall be different from the former ones, and shall put down 3 kings. He shall speak words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and shall think to change the times and the law, and they shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. But the court shall sit in judgment, and his dominion shall be taken away, to be consumed and destroyed to the end. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. His kingdom shall be an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Here is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly alarmed me, and my color changed, but I kept the matter in my heart.
Yeah. And then jump over to 8, 23 to 27.
And at the latter end of their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their limit, a king of bold face, one who understands riddles, shall arise. His power shall be great, but not by his own power, and he shall cause fearful destruction, and shall succeed in what he does, and destroy mighty men and the people who are the saints. By his cunning he shall make deceit prosper under his hand, and in his own mind he shall become great. Without warning he shall destroy many, and he shall even rise up against the Prince of Princes, and he shall be broken, but by no human hand. The vision of the evenings and the mornings that has been told is true, but seal up the vision, for it refers to many days from now. And I, Daniel, was overcome and lay sick for some days. Then I rose and went about the king's business, but I was appalled by the vision and did not understand it.
Yeah. So it goes into great detail where it says it's 10 horns, it's the beast, the system is the beast. And then it describes that there's a little horn.
Mm-hmm.
So at first, it's not what we would consider to be the most important one, or the biggest one, or the most powerful one. We, from a human perspective, we're going to look at the 10.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the horn is the leader, we are talking now about people. So there'll be individuals who are part of the cabinet, let's say. So again, in the United States, the president has a cabinet, so we know who the person is that's head of the Treasury. We know the person who's head of the land management of Homeland Security, the chiefs of staff for the military. Well, there's specific people that are in those roles. So the 10 horns are specific people.
Okay.
And now they together are operating the system, which is the beast. And he said a little one that doesn't appear, very big or powerful at beginning, plucks out 3 of them. Okay, now plucking out, again, this is where Scripture is really, really clear and precise. And you've had a garden, right? Okay,
I'm not very good at it, but yes.
Right. If you pluck out a flower or a bush, what do you do with it? What are you doing?
You're getting rid of the roots and getting rid of it altogether.
It's removed. When he says plucking out, well, they're out. Okay, so it's not like they're replaced. So it's not like the 3 are still part of the 10, or there's 10, and the 3 that used to be there are no longer there. The 3 new ones, no, they're gone.
Okay. Can I clarify real quick, or ask a question for clarity, I should say? So you were talking earlier about thinking that, in your opinion, that the 10 would ultimately be corporations potentially. That's different than the 10 horns that you're talking about now? You're talking about 2 different.
When I
Can
say
you
corporate
clarify that?
structure, when I say corporate structure, there's a somehow there's a structure unit. Let's say for the sake of argument, Amazon is one of the units.
Okay.
Well, Amazon is, what is Amazon? It's a corporation.
Right.
Okay. Well, we know something about Amazon. There's a guy at the head of that.
Okay. So you're not talking about 2 separate things. You're talking about corporations and then heads of corporations.
Heads of corporations that are the senior executive. Excuse me. The senior executive.
Okay.
Who is part of the cabinet. So it would be similar to this. The United States has a cabinet, and there's the Secretary of Treasury. Happens to be Janet Yellen. By the way, Janet Yellen used to be a member of the central banks. She was the United States central bank, what they call board chairman. Okay, she was replaced. She's back as the secretary or head of the Treasury. Okay. By the way, she just recently came out and said, and we're in the middle of this. When this, by the time this airs, it'll be just, I think it'll just have happened actually. So that I think the day before, or sometime, no, a few days before, this will have happened earlier in the week, Monday the 18th, and this is going to be Friday. So it happened this week. We will have found out, did we raise the debt limit or not? If we don't raise it by the 18th, everything stops. Right. If we do, and you're listening to this podcast and we didn't raise the debt limit and everything stopped, we can say it's probably closer than we think. We could be going into that collapse already. Probably they'll raise the debt limit would be but anyway, she came out and said, let's just get rid of the debt limit. Don't even have one. Let's not go through let's not through the game anymore. Let's just endlessly add debt, which is, by the way, one of the things that the central banks eventually will keep doing so that they can collapse the system. So it's really, really interesting. So anyway, so Yellen, now she's a person, and we know who that is. Right. Okay, what is she's the head of the Treasury. The Treasury is a department or a unit that's identifiable. So it's a both and. So that she's in the cabinet as a person, but she's representing and supporting and ruling
A unit
called the Treasury.
Okay.
So when we get to this one world government with 10 horns, it's structurally they have something, and some people again have said it's geographic, some other form. I'm tending to think it's some corporate form. I believe, by the way, that because it's a time of great wealth building during the first 3.5 years, I believe that's one of the reasons why the structure is probably corporate in nature. And literally people will have some kind of equity opportunity in those corporations or in those structures, that if it gets bigger and more profitable and more prosperous, we will perceive to get more wealth.
Right.
Now, you and I have just said back in 2008, people perceived they had a lot of wealth. And guess what? It all went away.
It was not,
because it was just calculation. And of course, they even then could buy and sell. So if people were smart in 2007 and early 2008, and they said, "Oh, I think this could be a problem. I'm going to sell and get the cash and keep it and hold it until after later," they made out really, really well. I believe with the new corporate structure, it'll be a calculation of value, but there'll be no ability to buy and sell it. So you won't be able to do anything with it other than just say, "Hey, I have a lot of equity and a lot of gain." So that when the 10 units come, there'll be 10 horns, leaders of departments, of divisions, of units of some kind. And the little horn, remember he's talking now about people, plucks out the three. And remember, he's not the leader at the time.
Right.
So when he does that, it's going to be really clever. It's not perceived as, uh-oh, this whole thing isn't working. It'll somehow be, and I'm still praying about this and trying to ask God, tell me more about that. Kind of what I said about a couple years ago. And having studied this and looked at it, I said, could you tell me how the world willingly accepts one world government?
Right.
How is that going to work? How is that going to work? And then COVID happens. Oh, that's how
now
that works.
I see.
That's how that works. Okay, all right, I got it. Well, I'm asking the same question about how does one of them eliminate three and everybody sees it as being fantastic? They don't see it as a problem, and he plucks out three. And then it talks about that, and this is interesting, he shifts. I don't know if you noticed it in there or not. It talks about it's part of a new kingdom.
Right.
Okay, now we know something about that. The kingdom that we live in now is called the kingdom of the world.
Right.
We know it's under the control of Satan. It's got entropy, things fall apart, destructive, difficulty, self-centered people, trouble, problems. Even the word, interesting enough, when Jesus said, "You in the world you're going to have trouble," the Greek word is you're going to have tribulation.
Right.
We interpret it as, "Oh, this isn't good." But this is talking about when the one world government enters. It establishes a new kingdom, imperceptible, because it's still controlled by Satan. But interesting enough, for 3.5 years, it goes from being completely destructive and awful to really, really, quote, successful and beautiful, and looks fantastic. Because it's a brand new kingdom, and the Antichrist is moving to get into leadership of that kingdom. And of course, we believers who are part of the remnant will still be part of the kingdom of God. And guess what? The clash is coming that is going to determine the ultimate outcome of that, where that kingdom is removed, and God's kingdom prevails at the very end. Why? Well, because Christ comes back
Right.
at the very end of the thing. But he shifts it to a government, and he talks about a kingdom. Oh, he just introduced the fact, hey, do you see this is spiritual? See, John knew about the kingdoms. He understood this. This is a whole new spiritual thing that just happened. And that spiritual kingdom is now, trying to establish a power, over it. And then he describes that the Antichrist, the little horn, takes over and steps up into that position of then being the supreme being.
Okay.
And now he becomes known as, for believers, he's the Antichrist. Now, to the world, he'll be the opposite. He even declares himself, and people accept, I am the one and only God.
Right.
Okay, do you see how clever that is?
And people will worship him.
And they're going to worship him. And do you see how clever that whole thing is? Is that you willingly accept the beast. The beast of those 10, we have an Antichrist. Not known yet, but he's there. Starts to eliminate everybody else. And it's all seen as beautiful and wonderful. And what I try to tell people is, because we use the word Antichrist, and we know that's demonic and that's controlled by Satan. Okay, when you think of demonic and Satan, just what picture does that bring to mind to you? Demonic, Satan.
Evil, creepy, that you would know right away by looking.
Creepy, black, like awful, wicked,
dark.
Yeah. Well, the ultimate deception is made during this. This is why it's a new kingdom. Right now, and we're seeing the shift of this, but we're seeing good become evil and evil become good. Well, that's part of the deception, and so when the Antichrist steps up, it'll look like, and this is really an interesting thing. It'll look like Princess Diana. The world idolized Princess Diana.
Right.
And she was considered and thought of as the most
highly, and everyone loved her.
Beautiful, fantastic, look at what she's doing person, without any thought that there's anything not right with her. Look at that. And that's what an Antichrist will look like. See, it'll be popular, beautiful, benevolent, well received, seen as good. Look at all they're doing. Isn't that a great thing? Two interesting things. One, people don't know that Diana was involved in the occult, into spiritual stuff, negative spiritual evil stuff. That she followed her life that way, and she was involved in a lot of cult stuff, anti-God stuff. But nobody would do that. Okay, now, I don't know if you remember this, but the same day that Princess Diana died, do you know who else died that day?
I don't.
Mother Teresa.
Really?
The same day. Okay.
Wow, I did not remember that. Yeah.
Well, you don't remember it. Okay, why not? This is what I'm trying to say. What happened? The world stopped.
Right. And mourned Princess Diana.
Mourned and worshipped that moment. And every news station, everything became...
It was all about that.
About Princess Diana and the funeral and all of that and what's going to happen and how come and what happened. Well, and you don't remember it because why? Nobody talked about Mother Teresa.
Wow.
But of the believers, as we look at those two people, who would we have thought?
We would have mourned Mother Teresa.
We would have mourned Mother Teresa because of her beauty and her servanthood and her beauty of life, because she was a servant of Christ. And there's a great little story about her, by the way, of and this has implication for us as we seek God's will. She's over in Calcutta, and she's doing these things for the very, 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 very poor in Calcutta, India. And so a reporter goes over there and talks to her about it. And what are you doing? Here's what I'm doing. Here's how it's going. And the question was this: don't you care that you're not doing this all over the world and taking care of poverty all over the world? And shouldn't you be doing this on a worldwide basis? And her response was beautiful. She says, no, I'm just following God's will for me. And she says,
that is beautiful.
And she says, I know that my little thing that I'm doing here is literally a drop in the ocean. That per se, as you look at the ocean, doesn't matter at all. But I know, and God knows, that my call to this drop is my call in life, and I do it with great joy and with great willingness, and that was her heart. And so it was a great illustration, and I kind of recognized it at the moment, because I did receive that, hey, by the way, she died the same day. But there was no publicity. There was no anything about her funeral, about what happened, there wasn't, remember, every station was about the life of Di, the life of Di, the life of Di, the life of Di. There wasn't one story about the life of Mother Teresa.
Wow.
And it's God saying, do you see what's going to happen here? Is that the Antichrist is going to look this way, and the world is going to ignore the godly thing and go for something that they would attribute to. Isn't that a good thing? And that's what the Antichrist is going to look like. And so we get some description that Daniel starts to give about this Antichrist. He says, he starts speaking pompous words against the Most High. Okay, starts to say, the God of Israel, the Christian God, is not good, is not this, is not that. It's pompous words against him. It said he persecutes the saints. That's what I was talking about the rapture. He starts purposely to persecute the saints. By the way, who are the saints? The ones that didn't take the mark of the beast.
Right.
It's
which
not
by
even,
definition then leads you to believe we are still here when that is occurring.
We know for sure that some of us are here. Somebody's here. To be persecuted. So, and because the Antichrist isn't pulled up until during the first 3.5 years, pre-trib rapture seems like, if there's a pre-trib rapture,
there's a question mark there for
then
sure.
There shouldn't be any saints left, or maybe there's, and people would say, well, it's just a few that come to know Christ afterwards, and but the word saints here, and it's described throughout, is the ones that did not take the mark of the beast.
Okay.
And so he persecutes those. He said he intends to change the times. What does that mean? New laws, new paradigms. The system gets more intense.
New system, yeah.
How it's going to function is going to be different than anybody's ever seen in the past. Started by the beast, and then promoted by and intensified by the Antichrist. It said the saints are given into his hands during this time. So not only persecuted, but some are going to be jailed and or killed, martyred during this time. He said he's got fierce features and sinister schemes. Now remember, who defines sinister? God. The world defines it as good.
Right.
But God knows it's deception. God knows it's moving in an anti-godly way, and it's sinister, it's wicked, it's not of God.
And again, that comes back to that good looking like evil and evil looking like good.
That's right.
It's major deception.
Right.
Yeah.
It says his power, it grows mightily, and it's not his. Okay? If it's not his, whose is it?
Belongs to the enemy. Yeah.
Yeah. So Satan is behind this, giving him his
controlling
power.
Yes.
And he said his power grows mightily, but it's not his. No, that's because it's Satan's.
Mm.
It says that everybody prospers and thrives.
Mm.
Apparently, that's what people say. Yeah, this is good. He said he destroys the mighty and the holy people. He causes deceit to rule and people to believe the deceit as good.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes even deeper and more interesting. He exalts himself, and then he says he rises against Christ, but he's going to be broken. So God says, Daniel, go to Daniel. It's all going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you something, Daniel. Don't worry. The end is going to be, he's going to be broken.
Right.
And overcome, even though he rises up against God, thinking that he can win the day. But the truth is, it's not going to happen. So as we look at that whole Daniel story, again, we can say a couple things. The beast is not the Antichrist.
Right.
The Antichrist is one of the 10 leaders of these 10 units. It goes from 10 to 7 to 5 to 3 to 2 to 1. He's the one remaining, and everybody worships, adores him, and he's doing it all through deceit that looks like it's going to be good,
Right.
but it's really Satan driving the purpose of winning his battle with God. I can completely control earth, and I'm going to eliminate all godliness on earth, which you can see today. It's kind of happening already. And the only ones left are the saints, and some of them, get harmed and persecuted. But there are people that make it through, and we'll talk about that next time. So hopefully all of us understand is that, and that's why as I look at the signs, my focus is on the system, not on the Antichrist.
Right.
I know the Antichrist is coming. And it's going to be one who elevates himself to God, and he's going to be the driver behind the persecution of the Christians. But the system is getting set up, and it's going to twist everything around. It's going to trample it down, replace it with a brand new thing, and everybody willingly accepts it, which we'll get into a little bit more. So really interesting stuff, and we could go on and on.
Yeah, it really is. It's
and
fascinating to hear it all. Yeah,
we
absolutely
will pick this up next time and talk more about this, because Revelation starts to describe a little bit more about the 7 to 5 to 3 to 2 to 1 and how that works, and it's really interesting stuff. So we'll get into that further, but now I just hope everybody understands and look for, do you understand the system that is coming? The one interesting thing to me is I've seen that system now, which I could not imagine. And that's the COVID, in a sense, one world government that kind of functioned and still functions.
You can see a foreshadowing of it.
A foreshadowing of it that, that's really interesting that we get the privilege in a way. That's why I'm not scared about it, and I'm not worried about it. It's like, man, this ought to be interesting to be, what a time is this to be part of Live and spread the good news.
Right.
So,
and even, let me just focus on that part you said at the end there, and spread the good news. If anything, as we delve into all of this and we hear more and more about what is to come, and it will happen, whether it's in our lifetime or not, this is prophecy that will be fulfilled. What it should be doing, yes, we should be asking God for clarity and wisdom, and okay, what are our next steps, and to give us eyes and discernment. But above all, it should be driving us back to his feet.
Amen.
And to intimacy with him, to repentance, to asking him to ready his bride.
Yes.
And that starts with me personally. God, what do you want to do to purify me so that I reflect you better, so that the people around me see you and they want to know you and they get to know salvation through faith in Jesus. This should drive us strictly back to his feet, to repentance, to bringing others to his feet so that they also have the security and the love and the grace that we get to experience.
That's right. And God says, I'm still going to give you life and give it to you super abundantly. I'm still going to give you covenant, that these things don't stop me from doing that. And so it's both expectation, not be afraid,
Yeah.
Yep, it's different. Yes, things I don't like, I'd rather not.
Hmm.
It's difficult that when you go to a restaurant, a certain place, and they say you can't come in here unless you have the vaccine, or you can't come in
Right.
unless you have the mask. Boy, I wish that wasn't so.
Right.
But God says, well, are you going to let me show you what life, can be, and relax
Right.
and start to enjoy it? Yeah, I can still do that. And so,
And he
uh,
still wants to deliver joy to us and peace to us and abundant life, even in that time,
that's right. That's right. And that's
Yeah.
even particularly true for business people. That God is saying, if you listen and follow me, I'll show you what to do and how to do it, so
Hmm.
that you don't get caught surprised and now you can't
Yes.
react to it. And
Right.
that's why
Right.
following God is so critical. So we're excited about that. We pray, that if you have questions, that you'd send them in
Hmm.
on the YouTube comments, or questions at afjministry.com, questions at afjministry.com, and we'll pick it up. And we'll pick this up again next Friday and keep this going. But it's really getting intriguing
Hmm.
to see all that's going to happen, and the clarity of it is really kind of fun to see.
It's
So,
fascinating.
yeah,
Yes. So thanks for sharing your wisdom. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We look forward to more of this discussion in the future. So
amen.
have a
Yeah,
great
yeah,
weekend and thanks again.
yeah. We'll see you Monday.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.